Good evening, everyone. This is Hangist Satancha Smoochworth, and this is my third video and the third installment on my series on foreign influence on American public opinion. In the first video of this series, I outlined how foreign institutions have been remarkably successful in infiltrating American public opinion generating institutions such as think tanks, schools, and newspapers. In the second installment of this series, I emphasize how the People's Republic of China specifically has influenced American newspapers and news media. In this video, I will outline how the People's Republic of China has equally exerted an influence on the American Academy. The subject of Chinese influence on American education originally piqued my interest when I began studying Mandarin in high school. Our textbook, known as the Practical Chinese Reader, was a bizarre assortment of laziness and zealotry, the sort of combination only communism can produce. In the fifth or sixth lesson, I don't remember exactly which, when a student has maybe a vocabulary of 100 Chinese characters, for instance, at the time we knew no color other than the color red and could not say whether it was raining or not. The subject of that lesson is, and I quote, "We must realize the four modernizations." Clearly an essential phrase in every language. For those unfamiliar with propaganda slogans from China in the 1980s, the four modernizations were a policy initiative originally created by Zhou Enlai and one of the centerpieces of the regime of Deng Xiaoping. The four modernizations were, of course, in industry, agriculture, science and technology, as well as national defense. Of course, our textbook did not give us this context or a definition of the four modernizations. To me, at least, the fact that a Chinese language textbook had not changed its lessons since the 30 years when this propaganda slogan was relevant smacks of incompetence. In fact, doubly so when any Westerner can Google the four modernizations and quickly find that there was the suggested fifth modernization as well, namely democracy, and this suggestion eventually led to the Tiananmen Square massacre, an event which is a sore spot or a thorn in the Chinese side. If China's attempts at influencing our education system were as inept as they used to be, there would be little to fear. Unfortunately for the United States, and fortunately for learners of Mandarin, the PRC has upped its game. In 2004, in an effort to expand its influence and, quote, soft power, the Chinese Ministry of Education and Culture created the Confucius Institute. The mission of this institute is to promote the study of Mandarin, specifically within the form of the simplified character system used exclusively in communist China. The irony here, of course, is that Mao Zedong, who is venerated above all else in China, specifically denounced Confucius and Confucianism. Indeed, one of Mao's most famous propaganda campaigns was to, quote, criticize Confucius. Henry Kissinger, in his book on China, argues that Mao did not really mean it, except to encourage public rancor and in private venerated Confucian classics. In any case, the Mao Institute would not sound as scholarly nor as welcoming. Today, there are over 1,000 Confucian institutes in operation all over the world, and a plurality in operation in the United States. The most conservative estimation of their budget is $7 billion per annum. Unlike culture and language institutions from other foreign countries, such as Germany's Goethe Institute, which are standalone, the Chinese Confucian Institute operates in partnerships with schools and universities. This includes small institutions and schools like the Los Angeles Language Academy, as well as the Lansing Post Academy in Michigan. The Confucius Institute has also partnered with prestigious universities such as the University of Chicago, George Washington University, and George Mason. The agreements the Confucius Institute made with these universities are for the most part impossible to discover due to their concealment behind non disclosure clauses. What is known, though, that in Article 5 of the Standard Form Agreement between a university and the Confucius Institute is that the Confucius Institute is required to obey Chinese law, which, of course, criminalizes dissent. Universities affiliated with the Confucius Institute are prohibited from, or at least strongly discouraged from, discussing issues like the independent nation of Taiwan or the formerly independent nation of Tibet. The University of Sydney in Australia and a university in North Carolina, that is in the United States, have both responded to communist pressure through the Confucius Institute by disinviting the Dalai Lama to speak on their campuses. In one report from the University of Chicago, apparently the Confucius Institute had a, quote, professor on the payroll who taught no classes, but instead reported directly to the Communist Party of China. Just as their contracts are vague, so is their curriculum. Their teaching methods are not public information, nor are their credentialing procedures for teachers public, with the following exception. No teachers may have criminal records, even if they have a Nobel Prize, nor are they allowed to be members of dissident religions such as Falun Gong. The Institute has also been known to use propaganda in lieu of regular teaching materials. One such instance is that maps in the institutes and classrooms throughout the world show Taiwan as a province. Generally, the Confucius Institute teachers at universities are not hired by the university directly and are thus excluded from the free speech and tenure protections normally given to university faculty. Some universities in the United States, Canada, and Australia have pushed back against the nefarious machinations of the Confucius Institute. Pushing back, though, is easier said than done, for the Confucius Institute is known to pay at least $100,000 to $150,000 a year to every institution, sometimes up into the tune of millions, and it also provides an easy avenue for Chinese foreign students to study at that university. Mind you, foreign students pay full tuition. The University of Chicago, usually noted for its die-hard commitment to free speech, fortunately closed the doors to the Confucius Institute in 2014. Congress has, of course, weighed in on this matter, and as usual, that was ineffective. Some universities even failed to show up to testify, although they had been summoned. Those who argued on behalf of the Confucius Institute argued that it is a great vehicle for changing China internally. Those opposed argued that ceding curricular control of American universities to Chinese communists is more likely to influence America than it is to influence China. All thanks, of course, go to Representative Chris Smith, a Republican from New Jersey. More recently, there has been greater pushback on the Confucius Institute from the Academy. Earlier this year, the National Association of Scholars published a 183-page report, which was moderate in tone but eventually came to a strong conclusion on the Chinese Confucius Institute's role in the United States. Namely, they should all be closed immediately. The American Association of University Professors has come to the same conclusion, or as the institution itself says, allowing third-party control of academic matters is inconsistent with the principles of academic freedom. I hope in the future more universities will close the door to the communist Chinese infiltration. Foreign influence on American public opinion is hardy, stubborn, and fecund. For the nonce, it seems, we are stuck with a myopic investigation into Russian election meddling. Although this may benefit Republicans and or Democrats depending on how the investigation goes, I believe it is myopic and imperative to our national security and our national institutions to expand the breadth of this investigation to include at least the PRC. Thanks again for watching this, my third video. I appreciate every view, and if you enjoyed it, please like, share, and subscribe, and I would be happy to read and respond to any comments you have below. Thanks again. This is Hengis Satanta Smochworth.